Welcome to Trust the Journey. I'm Jason Moledzki.
And I'm Melanie Curtis.
Our mission is to live, love, laugh, and learn together with you.
Yes, indeed. We are here to create conscious connections, to grow and contribute through our practice of openness, honesty, vulnerability, humility, and trust, trusting the entire journey.
Amen. Across the wider internet, our handle is trustthejourney.today. That will get you directly to our website. It'll help you find us on Patreon. It'll get you to Apple iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you're looking to find us, YouTube, SoundCloud. We're all over the place on the internet. If you'd like to support the show, you can like, subscribe, comment, give us a 5-star rating, any of the above. And most importantly, if you'd like to really get behind the show and help make it happen, Patreon's the place to do that. Any donation will get you into the Trust the Journey family, which is a safe space that we all curate together. It's a space where we can share our true selves without worrying about being chastised or attacked or any of the things that might happen in the bigger world. We're actually creating the community we want to have, the society we want to have in the Trust the Journey family. It's a beautiful space full of loving individuals. We invite you to be a member, and all you have to do to become a member is donate on any amount in Patreon. Go to trustthejourney.today, scroll down, hit the donate now button, go on Patreon, make a donation, support the show, and become a member of the Trust the Journey family.
Amen. Yeah. And we also are open to sponsorships now. We have been doing the show for over 100 episodes. We feel like we have paid our dues. We have an audience, we have reach, and we're now looking for aligned partnerships. So if that feels like you, or you have an idea for us of a brand that might be a fit for us, please reach out, let us know, and we're going to start to cultivate those relationships and go from there, making advertisers an additional value add to the show. So it's not just about partnering with anybody who's going to give us money. It's about partnering with people that align with our values, that are adding value to the world in their ways, and that we genuinely believe in, so that when you hear something advertised on our show, you can know it's of high value to you as well. So cool. Yeah. And we also want to thank Kimberly Joy Voice. Kim, we love you. She is our audio engineer, editor extraordinaire. Get Kim's services if you need help. KimberlyJoyVoice.com. Jay is on Instagram at Jason_Moledzki. Everything for me is MelanieCurtis.com. And yeah, we're diving in today talking about Burning Man. Let's do this.
Yeah. What a topic.
Yeah.
Where do we begin?
Well, you know, I think it's important to note for people listening is that I have never been to Burning Man, and Jay has many times. And it's something that, at least for me, I feel more and more called to want to go there. I feel very much aligned that it would be a space that I would love, and a community and a beautiful experience that would be sort of very aligned with my life and beliefs and calling to connection and art and expression and healing and all of the things. But that's just me assuming, because I don't really know. I haven't had the experience. So I want to interview Jay a little bit more about this event. So for people who are interested in it and knowing more, we can learn a bit more about it and go from there. How does that sound to you, Jay?
Yeah. Well, I'll also put some backstory in place. I've just returned from my 8th burn over a 15-year span. My first burn was in 2007. This is my 8th burn. It's now 2022. And I am currently in the stage that burners refer to as decompression, where I am reintegrating myself into what we call the default world, which is not an easy process. One of the many things that happens at Burning Man is we shift away from the default world, the world we're used to living in, which is just the default, right? It's where we exist. It's the world we're born into. And we've created another world for ourselves to live within. And reintegrating back into this default world it's a challenging experience, because the world we create for ourselves at the burn is vastly different from the one that we live in as a default.
Which sounds to me very appealing. Hashtag fuck the system.
Yeah, very much so.
Obviously, there's a million things I could ask, but I mean, just to dovetail off of that initial share, what is different?
Wow. Well, so many things are different. First of all, I think the biggest thing that differs in the Burning Man, once the week, the lead up, the whole burn has occurred, the general, how do you say, state of being of the citizens of Black Rock City is one that is what I would call wide open, where hearts, minds, souls, acceptance are just wide open, and there's no more judgment. There's no more holding on to, or like this idea of I keeping something for myself. Everything is ours. Everything is we. Everything is us. And there's a connectiveness amongst the citizens that we don't necessarily feel here in the default world, which is very individualized, very mine, very fence around it. I keep this, that's mine. If you want some, maybe I'll sell you some kind of commodity capitalized, where Burning Man is a decommodification gifting culture where everything is ours and we just take care of each other. Beautiful. It's a big family.
Beautiful. Can you give us just for people who don't even know what Burning Man is, I kind of want to hear a little bit about, like, do you know how it started? Do you know, like, what is the premise? People show up to do what? I mean, I know there's like this big burning of this thing at the end and there's some metaphor around that, but can you give us a little just bare bones understanding of what the event is, why people would go there, other than what you've just shared, obviously?
Yeah. So I'm going to be guessing, I think it is 33 years.
Okay.
Could be off by a few years, but I think it's 33 years since Larry Harvey founded the event. And it was initially a gathering of free-minded people on a beach in the San Francisco Bay Area. And they built an effigy of a man to burn as a bonfire, as an semblance of, like, we're tired of living in this kind of concept of, who we are and what it means to be human and what it means to be a person, and in the society they'd lived in. So around 33 years ago, Larry Harvey founded the event, and it went on for a couple of years or a few years on that location, and eventually outgrew the space. And it moved from the Bay Area to the Black Rock Desert, which is about 2 or 3 hours north of Reno, Nevada, on a dry lake bed, which is commonly referred to as the playa. The lake bed is a alkaline dust. It is a very, very fine alkaline powder. So it is pretty much perfectly flat, mined for a few sand traps where the dust builds up when the wind blows. And it is a very, very intense environment. It does not sustain life. It is the least life-sustaining place that you could imagine. It's like being on the surface of the moon.
Wow.
In the sense that if you didn't have everything you need to support your life, you're going to shrivel up and die very quickly. You would probably last less than a day or days. I mean, you would not last very long without a full regiment of supplies. I'm talking about miles and miles and miles of perfectly flat, dry, 110 degrees in the daytime, could be down into freezing at night, and the wind can blow to where it is a total whiteout where you can't see anything at all, dust storms.
Wow.
Very intense environment.
Wow.
So the event happens every year, except for the last couple of years of COVID, in the Black Rock Desert. And about 50 to 70,000 people gather. And the event isn't celebration of art. It is an art festival. I would very clearly say that it's an art festival and not a music festival. To differentiate, there is plenty of music, but the event is based around art as its core foundation. And so there are large scale art installations all over the event. And in the center of the event, there's a large structure, an effigy of a man, Bernie. Is his affectionate name, Bernie.
Nice.
And every year they build this effigy, and the culmination of the event on the Saturday night, the man is burned to the ground. And in my personal view of that, it's a release of our concept of self, basically.
Yeah. I mean, even just seeing the pictures, I can only imagine what the experience is like. You know what I mean? It seems to me like one of those things that you cannot really describe it or get it unless you have experienced it, even though, and I don't mean that in an exclusionary sense, I mean it just in acknowledging that it is so unique and special and not repeatable in outside of those circumstances.
The context is so deeply important.
Super, super big time. And even just like I was saying, just seeing the pictures of the art the art is absolutely mind-blowingly beautiful to me when I see it. And I love the idea personally of ending up at a burn one of these years and being able to have that experience, because as someone who loves art so much, also loves connecting, also believes in opening our minds and all the things that you just described, it has a great appeal. What's interesting is that there were years where this is sort of funny to say now based on where I am in my own evolution, where I was like, oh my God, the last thing I would want to do is go to Burning Man. Like, who would want to go to that? There were a number of years where I'm like, I just spent 15 years of my life going to the biggest party of the year at every skydiving event, traveling the globe, working super hard. The last thing I wanted to do was to go to something that seemed like a big party. You know what I mean? And I think there can be misconceptions about what it is and why people go. And so that's sort of what I'd be curious to hear about next is, what drew you to it? How did you even go? Because I know tickets sell out immediately. Like, how do you even get to go? What called you to go? Can you say more about that?
Yeah. Well, initially, 2007, my first burn, I was called by the curiosity, you know, that deep curiosity of what is this? What's going on out there? I'd been to many music festivals. I'd been to lots of big parties. I'd been to lots of skydiving boogies, like a World Free Fall convention, you know, huge gatherings of thousands of people. So, and I'd been to big events and music festivals all around the world, and I had some ideas of what I thought it was about. But you never, no matter what I try to explain here today, you never really know what it's about until you're there and you're actually experiencing it.
Yeah, I believe that.
And you really hit the nail on the head, where like you just can't create the context that is the experience without the experience. And then so that brings you to the question of like, oh, who goes?
Yeah.
Who gets tickets? And this is a really curious experience in my own journey over the 15-year span that I've gone. Anytime I've ever wanted to go and made the decision to go, I get a ticket. And whether that comes through going through the initial ticketing process and, you know, buying tickets on the day of, or just looking for a ticket afterwards, or like this year where I found myself with a sudden change of plans late in the season. I wasn't planning on going. I had plans to be on another continent doing other things, and those plans changed at the last minute, and I suddenly had the calling, and I felt like, what are you doing? You should be going to this event. Why aren't you looking for a ticket to see if you can go? And I made 2 or 3, I think I shouted out to 3 people, and first one replied back. The second one replied back within 2 hours. I had a ticket and a vehicle pass in my hands, because the people who are meant to be there end up there.
Yeah.
It's it's a self-filtering plot. And every year it's the same thing. The days before, I see people going, I've got a ticket. Who wants a ticket? Like, those tickets become available because the right people, the people who aren't really committed back out, and the people who are saying, I'm going no matter what.
Yeah.
Right down to and I have a perfect example of somebody who was like, I don't have a ticket. My bags are packed.
Mm-hmm.
They are packed. Like, person is like, they've got their food sorted. They've got all this. We're going.
Yeah.
And then boom, ticket.
Beautiful.
Lands in their lap. That's how that works.
I'm such a believer in that.
Yeah.
Such a believer.
That's how that works. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so why did you continue to go? You know what I mean? If curiosity called you there, can you, like, what makes you go back? And I presume that's a long answer, because it probably, it probably involves all this like stuff that happens over the 8 times that you've been to this thing, which, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just am like very curious about that evolution of participation.
Well, let me just say that I just took a 5-year break.
Mm-hmm.
It was 2017 last time I went, and I did not feel called to go between then and now. I felt very clearly that I needed some space and time to grow and change and to process and to develop. And I'll say that Burning Man changes you. It changes us, or at least it changed me. And in that sense, what I can say is I'm not the same person that I was before I went. And every time I go back, that is the same story. So it is a transformative event. It is a kind of life experience that you return from changed because of the intensity of the experience. You're never going to be the same person afterwards. And I've been reflecting on this point pretty deeply over the last week or so while I decompress and de-dust. Oh my gosh, the dust just gets everywhere. And the person that I am now, like, I start to look back at pictures. I look back at the pictures of who I was before my first burn, and I look at pictures of who I am now, and it's visibly obvious. The differences are clear as day. Before my first burn, I had no tattoos. Now I'm covered in ink. I'm becoming art. The art is just overwhelming. I'm like, it's a state of mind. It's a state of being. It's just a way of living. And yeah, Burning Man, it changes us.
What is one of your more poignant transformations? I'm not to hierarchically tell those stories, but can you give us a more detailed, specific example of a transformation that you have basically been through as a result of going to Burning Man?
Yeah, I can give you one that just goes straight to the core.
Yeah,
it's right to the center of the heart.
Please.
2017 Burning Man was the time and place where Tucci and I, my first wife, decided to separate and get a divorce. That was the place where we looked each other and said in the eye and said, yeah, this is over. This period of life, this 15 years that we'd been together, is now drawing to a close. And we're both acknowledging that. And that push, that nudge to that place, like to get to that awareness on both sides of us, for both of us to reach that, happened because of putting ourselves in that place together and reaching that together.
Yeah.
And now returning 5 years later, I spent the vast majority of my time with Tucci, enjoying, loving her company, loving her friendship, loving our infinitely entwined relationship, and enjoying her passionate relationship with her new partner and being completely comfortable, and both of us completely loving and supporting and grown out of that codependent relationship that we'd been in into these strong, independent, loving people who could support and enjoy and celebrate each other. And I absolutely credit that the burn as one of the big pieces in the puzzle of undoing that codependency, building the independent, self-reliant individuals, and then being able to come back and celebrate who we are together once again at the same event 5 years later.
Absolutely beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I hear you describing it, and to me, the only thing that it feels reminiscent of is ceremony, is plant medicine work, you know, where
Absolutely.
It's so intense. It's nothing can describe it. You have to experience it. And yet you are changed forever as a result of it. That experiential thing. One thing, this is sort of a slight left turn from the deeper transformational stuff, but I feel like I've heard stories like this, but maybe this will go nowhere, but I want to ask it anyway, is have you had any experiences there where like it's this synchronistic, random, you meet someone that you didn't expect to meet, or you have, you know, like something like that, where it's this like an unexpected, delightful, and or not. I mean, I guess it could be any kind of unexpected thing, but I feel like there's probably a lot of that, creative collisions and connections that you wouldn't anticipate. Can you say more about that?
Well, that's really obvious. I mean, when you're there, that becomes a very obvious part of the experience, because you can imagine if you live in a town or a city with 75,000 people in it, how often are you going to bump into the same people? Well, if you frequent the same places, same coffee shop, the same restaurant, you can expect to see the same people. But if you're just wandering about the town, it's going to be fairly random.
Yeah.
And what we find is we run into the same people over and over again in no matter where we are, in the deep playa or at some art event or some talk. There's all kinds of workshops. There's all kinds of things going on. And we tend to run into our friends, our family, our clique of people that we're close connected to. Our similarly charged electrons are floating about the nucleus of this event and continuing to collide with each other in the same places. And I'll mention one specifically because it's been very, very clear to me. And I hope she hears this, actually, because it's been very important. You've been very important. Thank you. Present.
I love it.
So it's very common for burners to have playa names that they choose to go by in the Burning Man world that are not the birth name that they were given. You know, I personally haven't chosen another name for myself, but many people do. And my first visit to temple, there's a temple at the 12 o'clock radial on the map of the event. In my very first visit to the temple, I met my friend Present, and she's become a dear friend, somebody that I love very much. And her name is Present. And every time over all of my visits to the burn that I have made the journey to the temple to go and to connect and to spiritually say, okay, I'm going to the temple with intentionality, and I'm going to spend some time in the temple, and I'm going to get in touch with my own emotions. And there she is wandering by every single time that I've been.
Wow.
And it's just been, it's one of these things that the universe gives us as the little reminder, you know, like the little black cat in the Matrix kind of story, where you're like, yep, there's the key right there that just tells you that everything is happening for a reason and all is as it's supposed to be. And so thank you, Present, for keeping me present to myself and where I'm at.
You know, I love that. And I think that's something, because this could be an entire episode just hearing about some weird, cool, amazing, beautiful, transformational thing that people who don't go could never access. And that what you just shared is I think a great example of something extractable, where like that happens in outside the burn all the time, where it's like,
Yep.
This shows up and this shows up. We just have to be tuned in. You know what I mean? Whereas it sounds like the burn is a place where people tune in much more intentionally than if they would outside in their waking life with the screens, with the work, with the all the things. But for me, for sure, I have experiences like that where I'm like, something's going on here. And I'm noticing that. I'm allowing my intuition to come through. I'm allowing myself to recognize it, to honor it, to actually give it the respect that it deserves. And then as a result, go into a connection or an experience that we maybe wouldn't have had otherwise had we not allowed it and respected it.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in the same concept of listening to your instinct or letting your guardian angels guide you, your soul or your inner knowing taking charge and putting you in the right places at the right times to have these, coincidences.
Yeah.
Well, there are no coincidences. That we all know that. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, tell me about the art. Have you ever created art for Burning Man? If you have, tell us about that. If not, or the secondary part of the question, what is art that you have witnessed and experienced there that has impacted you in a really notable way?
Sure. The obvious answer for me being a DJ is that playing music for people has been, that's been my source of like a deeply curated art, something that I've spent decades developing and honing as a skill set to be able to then dive into. And I have always deeply looked forward to the opportunity to share my art in that context with such open-hearted and open-minded people who are there to receive that kind of a gift. And this year was really interesting. I did not get to perform. I did not get to deliver my art. My computer overheated, cooked, and fried some circuits and required a complete shutdown. And once I brought it back to the default world and reinstalled everything on it, I got it all working again. But something about the playa and the heat and this experience decided that this year I wasn't going to give music as my gift as far as a form of art. And I've been involved in many others. The one I would like to highlight this year is Air Phoenix's offering. The way the city is organized is into theme camps. So the theme camps are kind of small neighborhoods of, anywhere between, say, 12 to 100 people maximum. Usually around 30 or 40 is probably an average sized camp. And the theme camps offer some offering to the other participants, and the organization, the Burning Man org, supports art and endeavors that are interactive, that are allowing the participants to have an experience or enabling the participants to have an experience. And Air Phoenix, the camp that I camped with this year, is primarily made up of base jumpers, but not base jumpers alone. It's all kinds of Sky family and relatives. And over the past years, Air Phoenix has offered gifted tandem skydives over Black Rock City. So people would be randomly chosen out of the society and given a little chip, and you come back to the camp and They would go through a selection process, and then it would get down to whoever gets chosen. And some people would be given a sunrise tandem over Burning Man, first skydive ever kind of thing.
Wow.
And this was a great gift. It was a wonderful experience, but it was for the select few. Only half a dozen or a dozen people would receive this gift over the duration of the event. And so this year, Air Phoenix swung the needle on the compass in a slightly different direction and pointed towards something that we could do that would give people a similar experience and pull up emotions and get to why and get to our fears and get to who we are as base jumpers and skydivers and what we do and why we do it. So our art or our offering this year was that we built 2 45-foot tall towers of scaffolding. So we're talking about a 5-story building, 2 of them next to each other, and we rigged them with guy lines to stabilize them. And then we ran ropes in between them, and we created a rope swing jump from these 45-foot tall towers for people to be able to climb up to the top of and leap off.
Wow.
And we had about 200 people were able to make their jumps on these towers. And I'll tell you what, building these and climbing up there and just being up there, it's scary up there because
I believe it.
A pile of scaffolding that is just up and standing in the air it's wobbly, it's scary. The wind blows, the dust blows. So it's a real deal experience just being up there. Never mind, okay, I'm going to jump off this and trust whoever these guys and girls are to save my life with whatever system they've set up, and the whole thing's not going to come up,
It just probably looks super... I can't even imagine what it actually looks like. Certainly not like high end, clean, like... Anyway, you know what I mean? It just probably looks like, I built it in my backyard, literally, out of stuff I found in my garage.
Yep. It looks like a construction site. It's just stacks of scaffolding, with a bunch of ropes guying everything down so that it all doesn't blow over. So this year's offering was a look inside. It was it instigated people and inspired people to face their fears. And we would go out on our journeys around the playa while we were touring the city and meeting other people. We would tell them about what we're doing and invite them back and give them a little token to say, hey, come on back at this place and this time. This is when we'll be running the operation. And we had such a great crew of people. And I really want to give kudos out to everybody in Air Phoenix. You guys crushed it. It was amazing. And I'm so honored and proud to be part of the team that did such a great job. And everybody who came and climbed the towers, and whether they just climbed up and sat and enjoyed sunsets or sunrises, or whether they came and actually jumped off them during the times that we had the jumping operation going on, it was fantastic. And I want to give kudos to everybody who jumped off of it too. It's
beautiful.
It was scary. I did it. Yeah, go ahead.
You jumped? You jumped off it too?
Yeah, during the testing. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. That's what was my guess. But again, it's a visceral, literal, physical. It's so funny. I don't know, this is not even close to the same thing, but it's just to make a note about the bodily physical response. Like my body responds to height. Period. It does. And not everyone's necessarily does, but like people I think would look at me and go, oh, you have 12,000 skydives and all done all these weird things and made all these jumps in these weird places. You probably don't feel anything. Literally, like just the other day, I did the like sky walk or whatever it is where you're like hooked on a harness and you're walking on the edge, the outside of like one of these tall buildings in Manhattan in New York City. And I know I'm rigged. I'm not afraid. Like I'm not going to fall off, but my body was responding. I was like, my knees were shaking. I was stoked. I was enjoying it, but physically, literally, my body was responding. And I think it's what a gift to give people that experience with their physical response. You know, it's like, it sounds almost, because we talk a lot about emotional response, but there is something very powerful and beautiful about meeting our bodies in a powerful way too. And I feel like that's what I hear in what you guys gave so many people, on top of course, the emotional response that goes with that bodily response.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the body, mind, and soul, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can stand there, and we even had participants from within our own camp who it took them the whole week to get to the point where they would actually harness up and climb up the tower, get all the way to the point of jumping and have to sit back down. No, you know, like get to the edge, get there and go, no, and like get back down on the ground and sit down again for a little while and like calm the body back down, and being able to bring everything to that state of, you know, the physical body, it responds to the fears that we have. And so intentionally triggering these fears, but also holding a safe space for them to be triggered.
Yeah.
And by placing individuals and team members at the specific and known locations where these are going to trigger. Yeah. Right. Like we had people at the base of the scaffolding, at the transition to the next level, at the top level, we'd have a coach. We'd have a life coach, beautiful. Right? That's where like life coach is there. Like, come on, we're going to help you along. And we'd have people as they're shaking, as they're like trying to get up the scaffolding, and somebody's foot, their leg starts to jitter, you know, and they can't stop their leg from shaking. You literally have to grab their leg and like pull their leg and put their leg back down on the platform and help them as they're clammed onto the thing because they're so scared.
Yep.
So this was the whole goal, is to like, let's be intentionally in our bodies and experience what our bodies have for us to experience. And in this case, it's fear and overcoming that fear.
Absolutely. That is what I'm interested to hear about next, is what did people say when they got down? Like, what were some of the takeaways that you saw from people that were in that experience?
Well, we were really happy with the results, because we all know from lifetimes spent in the sport of skydiving what a tandem student or a first-time jumper looks like and how they're expressing themselves when their feet hit the ground. And it was very much the same, very much the same experience. Right? That's what we were aiming for, and that's what we got out of it. Is people were exuberant. They were like, "Oh my God, I was so scared up there, and I can't believe I did it." And so much gratitude and so much presence and so much awareness and self-confidence for having overcome their fear, that they know that they know they need a degree of it, but they know that it also shouldn't control them and dominate them. So it is very alike in kind to what we see from a tandem operation. And that's what we were going for. And it was great.
And then that's another thing, very, very translatable to outside of the playa life, to quote regular life, being outside of that curated, created environment and in this sort of society that we all live in, well, most of us anyway, and being able to call on that experience and go, I did that. The capability, the shift around capability, the understanding of the physical response as this thing that can be met, that can be worked through, with key support at key places. I love the metaphor of that, of having, you know, the life coach or the support team at those key moments where you know that people are going to struggle, and then delivering that support to the people so that they have that experience, not just the one of jumping off the scaffolding. You know, that's like the Jay wins a world championship. That's not Jay needs to get back on the plane after having a cutaway or fucking frapping into the pond and not killing himself, you know? Yeah.
What was really awesome about it as well was the level of experience of the people who were doing the harnessing, putting harnesses on people and prepping them and talking to them about what they're going to do and how it's all going to go. You have people with 10 or 20,000 jumps, you know, multiple championships, all these like highly skilled individuals who are just like, hi, nice to meet you. I'm going to be your gear up person today.
Yep.
And no idea that the guy working the ropes is one of the most renowned ropemen in the world from climbing and El Capitan, and, a phenomenal group of people that are just bringing themselves down to earth and being available and accessible. And anyway, what a great offering. I'm super proud of Air Phoenix for the work that they did.
Well, I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit. This is a bit of a selfish ask because I just did my most recent photo shoot yesterday, which, as you know, I love my photo shoots and my fashion and creating and expressing in that form. And that's one of the things that I've absolutely loved about the idea of going to Burning Man is creating the amazing outfits that everyone wears. But I want to understand more. Was that the same from the start? Did it evolve? Is it, obviously it's art, but is it, say more about the fashion element, because obviously people wear wild and crazy things that theoretically wouldn't be, quote, acceptable outside of that environment. And I love that. That feels to me like an amazing, beautiful double middle finger to the system, which I love, but it also feels like beautiful creative self-expression. It feels like freedom. It feels like an honoring of our bodies, body positivity, all kinds of things I feel like come through in the fashion. And so I just would love to hear more about that.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'll say right now that I still have remnants of fishnet stocking sunburn. So,
Perfect.
So, yeah.
That's a sentence I didn't think I'd hear today.
I can speak to my own experience, of course, only ever speak to my own experience. I think somebody like yourself who is very fashion forward is going to go to an event like this with big plans and wide eyes and excited and ideas to execute. Myself, when I started going, now here's the big difference, right? Like when and there's a meme, and I don't remember where I saw it. Maybe it was on one of the Burning Sky groups, or Burning Sky is a group of skydivers that jumps there at one of the camps. But it's like year one, and it has a dude in a pair of like beach shorts and a tank top and a ball cap. And he's like year one, Burning Man year one. Year two, the ball cap's gone and there's a funnier hat and some bracelets and funky shoes. And year three, the board shorts are gone. Year four, it's like full on rainbow tutus and stockings and bralette and actually, this is me. This is exactly me. It's like I went to Burning Man and I dressed within what I felt was a safe version of my own expression of self based on the default world.
Yeah.
Based on what I had been told by society my whole life is okay or not okay for me to wear as a mature male.
Yep.
And so I would default to costumes, and I'll use the word costumes very clearly over outfits.
Yep.
I would default to costumes that met the male persona of who I am. And I'm very grateful that in the 15 years I have come to embrace my entirety of who I am. And now the majority of the outfits that I choose to wear are very asexual, are very feminine, and express my entirety of who I am.
Love it.
And it is the opportunity to showcase every and all layer of creativity and self-celebration and just digging into the beautiful versions of who we are and loving it.
I clearly need to, in a beautiful way, go.
Absolutely.
It's coming for sure. Oh, I love it. Well, okay. So outside of the Air Phoenix stuff, I'm curious, what are you, obviously you're decompressing, like you said, you're in that sort of phase after such a big transformative experience. What are you taking away from this year that is going to be integrated back into your quote regular life?
Okay. Excuse me. I'm going to touch on the tender bits.
Okay. And you don't need to share if you don't want to, of course.
No, I am going to. This burn was really key for me. It was critical. It was a fundamentally game-changing, timeline-shifting, pivotal.
Good.
These are the words that I'm going to pick to try to encompass the experience. I went to this burn without really knowing what it was that I was there to give, and wanting to be present and of service. Whenever I would find myself kind of not knowing what to do, I'll walk up to somebody and say, how can I be of service? What can I do to be of service here? And there's a really well-known quote that you'll hear from burners, which is, you never get the burn you want, you always get the burn you need.
Yeah.
And it's much like ceremony in that sense, where you're going to have some kind of transformative experience that is going to push you in the direction of self-growth, whether it tastes good or not.
Yeah.
And so I found myself showing up to this burn with more preparedness. Like materially, like I had my van, I have a trailer, I've got a whole ton of equipment, I've got sound equipment, I've got camp equipment. I could really show up and like bring a full load of myself and say, hey guys, here's how I can contribute. I can bring shade, I can bring facilities, I can bring sound equipment, I can bring all these lights, I can bring all this cabling, I can bring power supplies, I can do the things that are going to contribute to the greater sense of the experience for everybody. And then where I found myself with this pattern repeating, where I would spend the whole day working. So, I showed up early. I had early entrance this year, once again. To be able to show up early and help build the camp before everybody else arrives. So that means getting up early, putting on work gloves, dust mask and goggles, and working physical hard labor all day long in 110 degree heat,
Wow.
So just busting ass. And I would finish a long, hard day of work, and I'm like, man, I did good work today. I really served my culture, my community, my friends. I served, and I feel good about who I am for having given back to everybody. And this is the whole point of Burning Man, is giving to each other.
Yeah.
And I would give to each other, and instead of allowing myself to feel good about the work that I've done and giving myself a pat on the back, I would find some way to make myself feel bad, to make myself, and this is the awareness that is coming as an end.
Yeah.
And this happened as I'm leaving the burn. Actually, just happened in the last couple of days. I'm starting to put the pieces together. I would recognize that every time I would do good quality work and I would be of service to my society, then I would find some way to make myself feel bad for feeling good. And I figured out the pattern would recur, and I would try to get up and show up and be present and be of service and offer everything that I can to be there in whatever way, form, or shape that looks like. And then afterwards, I'd find some way to make myself feel bad, whether that was through an inner voice that is like self-degrading, or whether that's through drug abuse, and then making myself feel physically bad for having done too much drugs. And now as a result, I feel terrible afterwards. But what it came down to is I figured out that at a core level that I've not been believing that I'm deserving of happiness, that I have not believed that I'm deserving of love.
Yeah.
And this has been my core takeaway from this burn, is every time I would be I'd be a big contributor to my camp and to people around me, and people would be so grateful for my presence. And I would find some way to shoot myself down for it, to make myself feel bad. And I no longer need to feel that way. I recognize that I can feel grateful to myself, and I can be deserving of happiness, and I can be deserving of love.
Yeah, that's huge.
It's huge.
Thank you for sharing.
Huge.
It's absolutely huge. Have you felt the good feelings that you are cognitively starting to have awareness that you are allowed to feel? Are you actually feeling them?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's very interesting. I went to a talk, a workshop, which was hosted by one of my good friends, Brett Kissler.
Mm-hmm.
And the workshop had to do with hearing those inner voices that we all have within ourselves, and acknowledging them, and developing skill sets for how to respond to them, and to recognize when they're occurring, and learn how to literally speak back to the voices within our heads. So we all have these, right? We all have these things where you're like, you're not good enough, or that was stupid, or don't do that. You're going to look dumb, you know? And that little voice, wherever that voice came from, that voice can literally suck a dick. Get out of here. Like,
in the bad way. In the bad way.
Because there's plenty of good ways to do that. right? But that voice can like get lost. Like, who the hell are you? You're not supporting me. You're not ensuring that I'm living my full life, that I'm taking care of myself and really receiving what I deserve to receive. You're shooting me down. You're that bully in the schoolyard. You're that, the terrible voice that does nothing to take care of my best interests or look out to make sure that I'm going to grow and achieve and spiritually develop. And so I attended this seminar, this workshop with a few friends, and you sit with each other face to face, and this is so vulnerable. It's so scary.
Yeah.
You speak the words that you hear your own inner voice say to you aloud to the other person. And you try a few scenarios. One is where you actually use the other person's voice, other person's name instead of your name. So I would say, Melanie, you suck at this, and you'd have to just sit there and receive that and allow me to have, the vulnerable process of sharing that. And then I would try saying this, like verbalizing the same thing, just to hear it, just to process it and say, Jay, you suck at this. Why do you keep trying to do this? This is, and hear myself tell myself that I suck at something.
Yeah.
And have you be witness to that. And then work on hearing that voice and developing a response and developing a way to say, hey, I don't suck at this. I'm getting better at this every try. You go ahead and get lost. Actually, you know what? I don't work for you. So why don't you just go disappear now?
Yeah. And so often those voices came from a protective where they actually were of service to us back in the day. Say and this is just a hypothetical, but like the bully in the schoolyard. If you're bullying yourself to stay silent, it likely meant you would have actually experienced less bullying because you were staying small, not being noticed, or whatever that might have done. And so there is a flipping of that too, both the, hey, get out of here, I don't work for you, and kind of like active, honest, healthy anger toward that voice, and gratitude to be like, thank you for protecting me then. I will take it from here. You aren't needed anymore. Thank you. Goodbye.
Absolutely. So that really, like, the taking it back to like that one big takeaway thing from this event for me was this whole journey of becoming self-aware of these voices that are in there that want to, they want to protect, but they're not serving my best interest anymore. And they're not actually taking care of me and figuring out that I do actually have a higher self that is deserving of receiving happiness and deserving of receiving love and of value and fit for service to my community. You know, like that's the big one. Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah, I'm a fit for service. Yeah, of course I am. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so exciting. What did we not talk about that we have to talk about in our final minutes?
I think the curiosity that is inspired by the architecture of the space. The space is designed to instigate curiosity, to bring that childlike nature of the self to the surface. So majority of people move around on bicycles, and you have this vast, this expansive playground of life-size art that is designed to be climbed on, to be touched, to go inside of, to explore, and to be interactive. So you see a group of adults jump on their bicycles, which is something kids do more of the time.
Yeah.
Jump on their bikes and go for a bike ride together.
Love it.
Right? And so you bring things back to that level of that childlike curiosity.
Love it.
You put on your favorite superhero costume and you head off and you go on an adventure, and you don't necessarily know where the adventure is going to go. And on that adventure, you encounter all kinds of magical, creative, amazing things that you could have never possibly imagined. So the texture of the landscape that inspires the creative child mind to just come to the forefront. And I love watching how, and first of all, I'm going to put gratitude, huge gratitude. We have the best family. Sky family, you're amazing.
Yeah.
And the way that our family sticks together, and we have a leader in our group, Dicko's got this really tall flag on the back of his bicycle with a flag on the top that we all know well. If you're a Sky family person, you'd see that flag and be like, yeah, I know that flag. And you would, we stick together. And as the group goes exploring, something curious pops up in our vision, and we veer off to one side to go look at it, climb on it, play around with it, interact with it, be inspired, or just be playful. It's awe-inspiring to see, full-grown adults back up to a level of let's be creative and let's be curious and let's just have fun and let's not know what's around the corner and let's just go wander around and see what's there.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yet another set of insights that is so, so, so translatable that we can, with intention, bring into our quote regular life. I mean, my last ceremony play was a big takeaway, just reminding me to play. I used to fish in mud puddles, you know what I'm saying? Where I tied a rock onto the end of the string. That was fun. It's just, I love the reminder for any adult to reconnect to childlike wonder, childlike curiosity, and play. Beautiful.
So I'm going to tell you my favorite story. The posse's riding along on bicycles. We're going from one place to another, and somebody looks over to the side and they're like, what is that thing? And there's this big, uneven kind of globe or sphere made of metal that is on pivots. So it rotates around. It's like a big monkey bars that spins around, and our family just goes, just heads for this thing. People start climbing on it, and you've got 20 people on the thing rocking it back and forth until it flips and does complete 360. So it's like a hamster wheel, but you can be on the outside and you can be on the inside, and it's not symmetrical and it's not balanced. Wow. And so you've got this, this group of monkey mind, slackliners, base jumpers, climbers, highliners, and just climbing all over this thing, and the thing rocks left, rocks right, and over the top, it's kids at the playground.
Yeah.
On the monkey bars, on the swings, having a grandiose time just playing and just being present, and that completely present to now, forgetting future, forgetting past. We're not worrying about outcomes, no attachments to things, just playful, fun curiosity.
And I love, Jay, that you are modeling and in your sharing the extremes, that the all-encompassingness of the experience of Burning Man, but of being a human, healing and experiencing and growing and changing and all the things, where you have this deep, painful, very vulnerable experience. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you always for being a model for people who want to grow in those ways, that have those voices too, to make them, to help them, I hope, feel less alone. That's fucking incredible. And I acknowledge you for that. Concurrently talking about these stories of play and going, you know what, you could be having this really deep and painful experience and not in very close proximity, you can access play and connection and love and beauty, that it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm in this arduous healing process and I'm in pain and it takes forever. And sometimes that's true, but I just love that this share today shows that we can wax and wane in and out of these things very, very easily. And that's normal and that's good and that's available, just simply available to all of us. So I honor you. I love you. I appreciate you. And is there anything else before we close?
I just want to express love and gratitude to all of my fellow burners and all of those who are yet to burn, who know that they are burners as well in their hearts. And I've noted that there was a time in my life where all my friends were skydivers, and now it's kind of shifted to where most all my friends are burners.
Nice.
And that's a really key note of observation. So thank you to everybody for your love and support and open holding of space for each other to just have the journey and have the experience. And I know every single one of us goes through a challenging, deeply challenging experiences, and we're all here for each other. So
absolutely.
Thank you. Love you.
Well, thank you everybody, as always, for listening. We love you too. We are grateful, always grateful, that you spend your time and energy and heart with us to listen, to share, to support us however you do. We are grateful. We love you. And I guess until next time.
Yeah. Thanks for everything.